At 68 years old, Evelyn Harper had long believed she'd faced the hardest chapters of her life. A retired school principal, she now spent her quiet days in a small craftsman-style home in Savannah, Georgia, raising her 3-year-old grandson, Oliver, after the tragic loss of his mother, Amelia, during childbirth. Evelyn filled her time ironing school uniforms, tending her roses, and preserving what little remained of their fractured family. One crisp October afternoon, as golden light spilled through the lace curtains, she heard a heavy thud upstairs, the unmistakable sound of a suitcase hitting the floor. In that moment, her instincts sharpened by decades, spent navigating troubled students and broken families, kicked in like a reflex. Something was wrong. Climbing the old staircase, her knees aching with every step, she reached Nathan's bedroom, her son, Oliver's father. The door was ajar, revealing chaos clothes, tossed into a worn black duffel. No folding, no order, only panic. His work laptop blinked on the bed, browser windows wide open. Going somewhere? Evelyn asked, her voice laced with dread. Business trip, he replied, without meeting her eyes. But Evelyn knew the truth. This wasn't a trip. It was a disappearance. Evelyn stepped into the room, her hands trembling as she caught sight of the shattered picture frame on the hardwood floor. It was a photo of Amelia, cradling newborn Oliver, their faces glowing with love and hope. That frame had sat untouched on Nathan's dresser for 13 years. A quiet memorial to the wife he'd lost and the son he'd barely raised. Now it lay cracked, forgotten, and stepped over like yesterday's garbage. "Nathan, talk to me," she pleaded, her voice soft but firm. "What's really going on?" He finally looked up. His eyes, once so full of grief and guilt, were hollow. Now cold, detached, and disturbingly at peace. "I'm leaving, Mom," he said flatly. "I should have done this years ago." The words struck Evelyn like a slap. All the years she'd spent quietly holding things together, raising Oliver when Nathan disappeared into work and late-night escapism, paying the bills with her pension, filling the silence with bedtime stories and home-cooked meals, all undone in an instant. "What about your son?" she whispered. "What about Oliver? He's better off with you. Always has been." Nathan zipped the duffel shut with a finality that seemed to echo down the walls of the old house. Evelyn felt her knees weaken as the weight of his indifference settled into her chest. "You can't just walk out," she snapped, stepping between him and the door. "Hay needs you." "No," Nathan said, brushing past her. "He needs stability. You've always been the one who gave him that. I'm just the guy who showed up late and made things worse." Evelyn followed him down the stairs, her slippers catching on the fraying carpet. As they entered the living room, Oliver looked up from his desk where he was working on algebra homework. The sight of his father's duffel and his grandmother's expression told him everything. "Going somewhere, Dad." Nathan paused at the door. For a second, Evelyn saw a flicker of hesitation, the same expression he wore at Amelia's funeral, lost and afraid. But it was gone in a heartbeat. "I need time, buddy. Time to breathe again. Grandma's going to take care of you." "For how long?" Oliver asked. "I don't know yet." Oliver nodded slowly. "No tears. No begging. Just quiet. Acceptance. Evelyn's heart broke all over again, not because Nathan was leaving, but because Oliver didn't seem surprised. Nathan opened the door, and the cool October breeze swept in, raising goosebumps on Evelyn's arms. He stepped out, closed the door gently behind him, and was gone. Evelyn stood in stunned silence, the grandfather clock ticking loudly in the corner. Then, Oliver, calm, composed, turned to her and said, "Don't worry, Grandma. I'll handle this." She blinked. Handle what? But Oliver was already climbing the stairs. "I need to check our bank accounts first." That night, Evelyn couldn't sleep. The house, once a safe haven of warmth and routine, now felt cavernous and haunted. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the tick of the clock and the gentle groans of the old wooden beams. But just past midnight, another sound caught her ear soft, deliberate keystrokes echoing from upstairs. She slipped into her robe, heart pounding. The light beneath Oliver's door cast a golden glow into the dark hallway. She knocked gently. "Sweetheart, it's after midnight." "Come in, Grandma." Evelyn pushed the door open and stopped in her tracks. Oliver was seated at his desk, fully dressed, surrounded by papers, folders, and a glowing laptop. His expression wasn't panicked. It was focused, controlled, deliberate. "What are you doing up so late?" "Research," he replied, without turning. "I've been tracking Dad's digital trail for the past 3 hours." Evelyn blinked. "His what?" Oliver pointed to a cluster of open browser windows and printed bank statements scattered across the desk. Emails, transfers, passwords. Dad wasn't careful. He used the same password for everything. Amelia 2010. The name hit Evelyn like a punch to the chest. The year Amelia died, giving birth to Oliver. I logged into his email, pulled the bank statements, tracked where the money went. "Grandma, it's worse than we thought." He handed her a paper. It was a bank statement, her name at the top, showing a balance of $12. "That's not possible," she said. "That was my retirement account." "It was. He's been draining it for months," Oliver replied, his voice calm but heavy. "And my college fund, gone, transferred to his personal account 3 weeks ago." Evelyn sank into the desk chair, her breath caught in her throat. Her hands trembled as she took the next sheet. Oliver's education savings account, 0 balance. But that money was protected. It was in a custodial trust. "Not anymore," Oliver interrupted. "Dad moved it, with help. Her name is Vanessa Torres. She works for a financial firm downtown. His girlfriend. She's been helping him open fake accounts, apply for credit cards, and even take out loans using our names." He clicked again. A glowing photo appeared on screen. A smiling young woman in business attire, posing in front of a building marked Brighton Financial Services. "She's been doing this for years," Oliver said darkly. "Dad's not just running away. He's part of a fraud ring." Evelyn's heart raced. "How do you know all this?" "I documented everything. Every email, every transfer, every signature." He opened a folder labeled Evidence. dozens of files, screen recordings, photos, email threads between Nathan and Vanessa plotting their escape, even discussing which elderly clients to target next. They were going to disappear together, Oliver whispered. New names, new city, our money. Evelyn could barely speak. Her grandson, just 13, had uncovered a criminal conspiracy. And then, with a calm that chilled her, Oliver said, "But they made one mistake. Grandma, they forgot I was watching." Evelyn stared at the glowing folder, labeled "Evidence like it was a bomb waiting to go off." "Oliver, you did all of this," she whispered. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he turned back to the laptop, clicking through screenshots of forged documents, fraudulent transfers, and manipulated credit reports. His eyes were sharp, not scared, not confused, but clear and unshakably focused. "I couldn't let them get away with it," he finally said. Evelyn sat in silence, trying to process what her grandson had become, not just a child reacting to abandonment, but a young mind methodically unweaving a web of deceit far more complex than she had imagined. "I reported the identity theft to the Federal Trade Commission this afternoon," Oliver continued. "Filed fraud alerts with the credit bureaus. Even submitted a tip to the state's banking commission." "You," what Evelyn nearly choked on her words. "How did you know how to do all that?" Oliver shrugged. "The internet teaches you a lot when you ask the right questions. Dad used the internet to steal. I used it to stop him." Evelyn's world tilted slightly. This wasn't the same boy she'd kissed goodnight just a week ago. Something inside him had shifted not just from betrayal, but from the weight of responsibility. "But, honey, this isn't your burden," she said, reaching out. "You should be worried about your next math test, not federal crime." Oliver turned to her with a quiet intensity that made her breath catch. "You didn't raise me to be helpless." The words landed like a revelation. "You raised me to be aware, to think critically, to stand up when something is wrong. Dad thought I wasn't paying attention, but I've been watching him for months. The secret phone calls, the way he closed his laptop when I walked in, the accounts he thought no one noticed him opening." He leaned back in his chair, his fingers laced together, the glow of the screen illuminating the jawline of a boy who looked far older than 13. "I started learning about cybercrime, privacy breaches, banking systems. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to." Evelyn swallowed hard. "And now, it's my turn to fight back." She sat stunned. For years, she'd carried the family's burdens alone. She'd believed Oliver was still a child, a fragile remnant of Amelia's love. But he wasn't fragile. He was forged in fire. "What happens next?" she asked. Oliver turned the laptop around to face her. "I've frozen Dad's accounts. His credit cards are flagged. I filed an anonymous complaint to Vanessa's employer, attaching full documentation." Evelyn covered her mouth. She could lose everything. "She should lose everything," he said simply. "She helped him destroy our lives." There was no hatred in his voice, only clarity. "They thought we were weak," Oliver added, eyes locked on hers. "But they were wrong." In that moment, Evelyn didn't see a child. She saw a protector, a strategist, a force. 2 mornings later, Evelyn walked into the kitchen, expecting the quiet ache of an empty house. But instead, the smell of scrambled eggs and toast greeted her. Oliver stood at the stove, dressed for school, a manila folder tucked under his arm. "You cooked breakfast?" she asked, startled. "You need to eat," he replied, placing a plate in front of her with practiced care. "We both do. We've got a big day ahead." Evelyn blinked, still waking up. "What kind of day?" He slid the folder across the table. "I spent last night digging deeper into Vanessa's past." Evelyn opened the folder and found a police report. Vanessa Torres had a history prior employment at Summit Investments in Ohio, accusations of embezzlement, falsified portfolios, and a plea deal that allowed her to avoid jail time as long as she never worked in finance again. And yet, she got hired again, Evelyn asked, stunned. No one ever checked her background. They trusted the clean resume she submitted and never questioned the gaps. Oliver pulled out another document. "But that's not the worst of it. I found at least 6 more victims just in the past year. Elderly clients. People like you." He tapped a name on the page. Helen Rogers, 79 years old. Lost, 28. Ling. Evelyn's stomach turned. "This isn't just about us anymore." Oliver nodded. "It never was." That was the moment Evelyn realized. The shift. Oliver wasn't just trying to protect their family anymore. He was trying to stop a predator. "She and Dad weren't just stealing," he said quietly. "They were building a life on stolen futures. If we don't do something, more families are going to get hurt." Evelyn sat quietly as Oliver spread out documents, emails, login timestamps, and victim names like an FBI agent building a case board. Except this wasn't fiction. It was real. And her grandson was orchestrating a counterattack. "What are you going to do with all of this?" she asked. "I've already started," he replied. "I prepared anonymous evidence packets for each victim, proof of the theft, how to report it, and where to get legal help. I've contacted a nonprofit that works with elder abuse victims. They're going to help deliver the packages and provide support." Evelyn's heart swelled with a strange, powerful mix of pride and grief. Pride in her grandson's bravery, grief that he had to become this strong so young. "I want to make sure none of them feel alone the way we did," Oliver said. "They deserve justice. We all do." "And what about us?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Oliver looked her straight in the eyes. "We're getting our money back, too. I've already disputed the fraudulent loans. I've submitted everything to the state's fraud investigation unit. Vanessa's job is already under review." Then he smiled, just a little. "And, Grandma, I think we're just getting started." In the days that followed, Evelyn watched in awe as her grandson transformed their modest kitchen into something resembling a digital command center. What once held dinner plates and flower vases now bore folders of victim statements, financial logs, and a laptop that barely got any rest. Oliver had always been a thoughtful child observant, quiet and polite. But now she saw something deeper, resolve. He wasn't reacting to the crisis anymore. He was leading through it. Each evening, after finishing his homework, Oliver would log onto encrypted forums and research case law, write emails to advocacy groups, or draft spreadsheets, mapping out financial fraud patterns. One morning, he even briefed Evelyn on how to spot phishing scams, complete with a PowerPoint presentation he'd built himself. "I'm thinking long term," he said, over breakfast one day. "There's a whole community of families being taken advantage of. If I can figure out how to help us, I can help them, too." Evelyn stirred her tea, speechless. She had spent her life teaching children how to read and calculate fractions, but she never imagined she'd learn lessons in resilience and justice from her 3-year-old grandson. "You're doing more than most adults would know how to," she said, unable to hide the admiration in her voice. Oliver offered a soft smile, but there was a weight in his eyes, the kind of burden no child should carry. "I just don't want anyone else to feel like we did the night Dad left." He paused, then added quietly, "Helpless." Evelyn reached across the table and placed her hand over his. "You've turned helplessness into power, sweetheart. That's something even grown men can't manage." That day, Oliver received a call from a local nonprofit, the Elder Justice Alliance, requesting to meet him in person. He'd sent them a batch of anonymized data about Vanessa and Nathan's scheme, including the names of multiple elderly victims, and outlined how they'd been manipulated. The organization assumed the files came from a whistleblowing adult. They didn't expect to meet a teenager in a school uniform. "Are you sure you're 13? The director asked him at their meeting. "Pretty sure," Oliver replied with a grin. They spoke for nearly an hour. By the end of it, the nonprofit offered him a volunteer consultant role to help them track digital fraud patterns. Evelyn watched from the corner of the office, her heart bursting, not just because of how he'd been recognized, but because he finally seemed to believe in his own strength. That night, back at home, Oliver quietly said, "I want to do this for real, Grandma. Not just for us, for everyone." She nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "Then I'll stand right beside you." And she meant it. She would no longer just protect Oliver. Now, they would protect others together. 6 months later, Evelyn sat at the kitchen table. Not the old house on Maple Street, but their new, smaller home across town. It didn't creak the same way. It didn't have the sprawling staircase or the ornate moldings. But it had something else now. Peace. She flipped through a paperback novel, barely registering the words, when Oliver burst through the front door, a wide grin lighting up his face. "Grandma, it's here," he shouted, dropping his backpack and holding out a crisp envelope bearing the seal of the district attorney's office. Evelyn's hands trembled slightly as she opened it. The header read, "Restitution payment, $18, Sube. Vanessa's car, jewelry, and investments liquidated," Oliver explained, nearly bouncing with excitement. "We're getting almost half of what Dad stole back." Evelyn stared at the number. It wasn't everything, but it was something. It was relief. It was a beginning. "What about the others?" she asked, already knowing he'd have the answer. "Mrs. Rogers got $22, 000, back. Mr. Lyons recovered his full savings. All 17 families got partial restitution. Some even had full recoveries because I reported early enough to freeze the accounts." Evelyn was silent, letting the weight of it settle. Her grandson, not even old enough to drive, had taken on professional con artists and won new doughs. "And your father?" she finally asked. Oliver's expression grew more solemn. "He took a plea deal. 5 years in federal prison. Might get out in 4 for good behavior." Evelyn nodded slowly. Part of her wanted to feel sorrow, but instead she felt justice. Not revenge, not cruelty, just consequences. Then Oliver said something unexpected. "I want to show you something." He opened his laptop and pulled up a website. The banner read, Family Shield. Org, helping families fight financial fraud. Evelyn blinked. The layout was professional. There were tabs for resources, testimonials, even a secure portal to report suspected fraud. "Wait, you built this?" Oliver nodded. "I launched it 3 months ago. I've helped 12 families recover stolen funds so far, taught dozens of seniors how to secure their online banking. I even got certified through the National Association of Financial Crime Investigators." She blinked again. "Certified. At 13, I passed their entry-level exam, and I'm speaking at a digital safety summit next month." Evelyn laughed the full kind that shook her shoulders and sent warmth flooding through her. "You're running a financial crime prevention service before high school." Oliver grinned. "And I still have a math test on Friday." That night, as they cleaned the kitchen together, Evelyn paused. "Are you happy?" "Oliver." He thought for a moment, then nodded. "I'm proud. Proud of what we survived. Proud of what I've built. And proud that you believed in me." She pulled him into a hug, holding him tighter than she had in months. Craig thought leaving would break them, but all it did was show them what they were truly made of. They weren't just survivors anymore. They were defenders. In the face of betrayal, it's easy to feel powerless, especially when the people who hurt us are the very ones we once trusted the most. But this story teaches us that strength doesn't always come from age, status, or experience. Sometimes it comes from the unlikeliest of places, like a 13-year-old boy who refused to let injustice stand. Oliver's journey reminds us that integrity isn't inherited, it's chosen. That even in the aftermath of loss, people can rise to protect what matters. Evelyn thought she had to carry the weight of her family alone. Instead, she discovered that love, truth, and resilience had been growing right under her roof the entire time. In the end, justice wasn't served by the courts alone. It was delivered by someone who believed that no one has the right to steal your future, no matter how close they are to you.